Myself a little cross mug. How adorable. Just need a sip of water. Hi, this is Locked In with Christ. I am your host, Zsuzsa, and this is a Christian-based podcast where we share the gospel, or share the gospel with you, and we get to learn more about Jesus together and his great love and the sacrifices that he has done, and to be able to share the living word, which is the Bible, and is the way, the truth, and the life. Just a little bit about me as an introduction. I'm a 22-year-old girl who is a believer and follower of Jesus, and I decided that I'm in a point in my life where my faith has been tested and my faith has been growing, and I'm in a very close relationship with Jesus, and that doesn't mean that I don't do wrong. It doesn't mean that I don't sometimes lead astray like a little black sheep, but God, being the good shepherd, leads me back to him. I'm coming here like being just raw and vulnerable and sharing my love for Jesus and the way that he has shown up so consistently in my life that it is undeniable for me. Everything that he has done, even the greatest sufferings are the greatest blessings that he was able to ever provide me in my life. And I want to be able to share it with as many people, because I do believe that God is the creator of this universe. He is the creator of our planet. He is the creator of everything. And there's so much beauty in this world. Even when you're going through something difficult in your life, it's able to get lost in the negativity. But Jesus is the light, and he grabs you and calls you and knocks at your door until you're able to go and open it and be, okay, Jesus, I am ready for you. Let's take the wheel. And that's where I believe that I am in my faith, that it has grown so much closer in the past few months, especially. I just want to be able to share the greatness of God and everything that he has done. And so with that being said, I think the first episode that we're going to film is going to be about my testimony and just the way that God has shown up so consistently in my life. And I want to be able to give thanks to my dad, because he was the one who first brought me to Catholic Church when I was around 4 or 5 years old. We would go almost every Sunday, and I could not sit through it. I was just trying to distract myself in church, and as a little girl, as a little 5-year-old, a little 4-year-old, you can't comprehend yet what is happening in church. You can't. It's hard to understand, but to be in the presence of it plants the seed. Just starting it off, I want to be able to give thanks to my dad for always bringing me to church on Sundays and planting that seed in me. And then my mom and my stepdad carried it through by bringing me to Saturday school and doing my first communion and all of it, which I was starting to understand a little bit more. I mean, in grade 3, it's a little bit hard. Like as like a 9-year-old, it's kind of still hard to really understand it, but to be able to learn about the 10 Commandments and to be able to learn a little bit about this and a little bit about that, just kind of, the seed, once it's planted and it's nurtured, it grows more. I'm grateful that even though I led away from it throughout my teenage years, I was able to come back to it once I hit around 18, 19-year-old, so in 2021. And that's when I really started seeing God work in my life. For those of you who don't know, I'm from Transylvania. I'm Hungarian. Majority of my family, especially my dad's side of the family, even my mom's side of the family, lives back there. And it's really rare of me not to go to visit my family. And so during COVID in 2021, when everything was locked down, I wanted to go see my family. I missed out already on 1 year. I didn't want to miss out on another year. My cousin was supposed to come in that year. She didn't because of the lockdown, and I tried to get myself to go. And so there was an obstacle in the way, and I was so frustrated by it that I wanted to be able to go. I just didn't have the right I didn't have the right circumstances to be able to go. And so I went to bed and my grandfather would carve me a cross necklace, and I had a little statue of Jesus in my hand, and I was just bawling my eyes out that night, and I was asking God, just, I want to be able to go home this summer. Like, I want to be able to see my family. I've already missed out on 1 year. I want to be able to go and see them and spend quality time with them, and just, be in nature and be with my family. Like, God, please just make the circumstances right. And I went to bed just bawling my eyes out. God, please, God, I want to be able to go. And I ended up falling asleep with that cross necklace in my hand and that little statue of baby Jesus and Virgin Mary and Joseph. And that's where, honestly, it really started to kick in, this whole, my belief in Christ. Like, my personal journey with him is the moment that happened. So anyways, that next morning I wake up and I go to open my bedroom door. My mom says, "You're okay to go." I was probably the happiest child. I was amazed. I didn't even think about, no, I did thank God. I did say, thank you, Jesus, for making my prayer, for answering my prayer and allowing me to go. I felt such a relief in the morning because I went to bed so frustrated, so angry, so upset that I couldn't go, that I just needed that one yes, and everything changed. It was an amazing summer, a lot of lessons learned. I came back. It was a really strange time because Canada was super strict about the lockdown versus in Romania, everything was we were partying. And so I come back to Canada and things change in my life. I have applied to go to a scholarship. I got to be in my first relationship too. And I didn't want to be the person to lead on anyone. And so because I applied for the scholarship, I was feeling like, oh, maybe I'm going to be leading on this person. And this is a huge part of my testimony. I mean, it's been the past 3 years of my life. I applied for my scholarship and I ended up getting into this relationship, and I was unsure how everything was going to be working out, how things would play out. Once again, I go to bed and I'm anxious about it. This is May 2022, and I'm anxious about it. I'm just like, God, if this, or June 2022, something, either June or May. And I went to bed and I was just praying to God. I was like, God, if this scholarship is meant for me, it's meant for me, and I will know that it's from you. I don't know whether I should go, whether I shouldn't go. I really like the way that my life is here. I find it comfortable. I find it good. And the next morning, again, I wake up and I receive an email that I have been accepted to the scholarship. So I'm like, okay, I will give this a try. I was going through a very hard time in my life, and it was also one of the reasons why I was unsure whether I should go to the scholarship or not. Part of me did not want to go, even though I did feel like I was being called to go. And so I get to the airport, and it's probably the time that I felt the most alone in my life. That's when I really, really started to find God. And so I remember going to church, and just a few months in, not even a month into living in Europe on my scholarship, I didn't go into class because I had two courses. I had an English course and I had a history course. I went into my English class. The teacher said, "You're not going to learn anything from here. If anything, I'm going to learn from you." So there was really no point in me to keep going to that course when I was told that. And then I had a history class, which was about Roman civilization that I have already graduated from college. I don't need to be here either. And so I spent that time making friends and going to church and praying. And that was the first time I ever started to read the Bible. And it's not like I had the book in my hands. I had my phone, and I decided to download the Bible app and read through the daily verse and try to find answers. I started following a Bible plan, started going to church on my own, not on Sundays, just any time, and to be able to go and pray. And so I remember once I went to this church, and I kneeled down, and I just had tears flowing. And it's not because I went there unhappy. I went there in a good mood, and I just ended up kneeling down in front of the statue, and I had tears coming. And that's why those tears were coming to me, because I felt such a relief and freedom, and that was the first time that I was able to forgive fully and surrender the situation to God. At that moment, it was one of the best feelings I could ever feel, that sense of relief. I decided to go see my family, and we went on a hike, and on top of the hike, like on the big mountain, there's a wooden cross, and on that wooden cross, there's a little box that's drilled to it that you can open. And there's a little booklet in it, and so I decided to write a prayer, and I said, God, I want to be able to follow you and follow your will in my life. Put it back in, I closed the booklet, I put it back. I decided to come back to Canada earlier, first of all, because the scholarship wasn't working out and all my friends and everybody was here, my relationship was here. I wanted to come back. Because I was living with my boyfriend at the time, I didn't know whether it was right of me to be living with a guy before marriage. And I remember one night I had a dream that I was in a jewelry store, and there was a big wall just full of cross necklaces trying to be sold, inside a store. And that's when I felt that it's okay of me. Because when I moved in with him, I decided to take off my cross necklace because I felt unworthy that I'm living with a guy and I'm trying to follow Jesus. Basically, I decided to choose the relationship over God. And then when I had that dream, I put my cross necklace back on, and it was just God telling me that you're safe where you are and everything is going to be okay. You are where you're meant to be. So I was in that relationship for 3 years, and that's why I love God so much, because every time that I feel like I'm at the lowest, He will always be the one who's waiting for me, and He's so graceful that whenever rock bottom hits, I know that I can go to Him and rely on Him, because Jesus is close to the brokenhearted. And His love is so good, and the sufferings that He gives us is probably the biggest blessing that we could ever, the greatest gift that we could ever receive, because in the suffering we are close to the teacher, and the teacher is close to us, and sometimes we need to hit rock bottom for the most beautiful thing in our life to happen. So that is just like a big overall view of my testimony. 2 things right now that I can think of that I didn't mention in my testimony. But when I said I led away from God throughout my teenage years, I didn't feel like in high school like I was necessarily fitting in with the kids, and I would try to fit in, but then I would feel like I'm getting bullied for trying to fit in, and so I didn't know where my place was, and I felt unworthy, I felt unlovable, I felt confused, lost God, but He did come through and He did save my life. The other thing is, I just want to be able to showcase God's glory, and not just through my story. That is why I decided to give my dad thanks right away when I started to open up about my testimony in the episode. Because, like I said, he was the first one to plant the seed in me, taking me to church around the age of 4 and 5. Because later on, when I was 6, he passed away. And it's funny how God works sometimes, because although it was a very difficult thing to process as such a young kid, God showed mercy and fulfilled one of my deepest desires, which was to have siblings. And now I get to sit here with 5 younger siblings. I'm the oldest of 6. And I remember as a kid, I would always ask my mom and my dad, Mom, when can I have a sibling? I want to be a sister. Please, can I have a sibling? They're like, oh, maybe. And then a few years later, I get my stepsister, I get my stepbrother, then I get my 3 half siblings. So we become this big family. And it's funny because sometimes God takes away something that is so precious to us, that is so important to us, especially as kids, to have 2 parents. And when something changes like that in your life, you wonder, God, why did you take this away? But He always reveals at the end why He has taken it away for and what he has replaced it with and what is the new that's coming. And so for everything that I've gone through, all I can say is I have given glory to God, because without him, I wouldn't have the strength that he provides me with. And to be able to see and hear other testimonies, and to be able to relate and see that Jesus really is who he says to be, because he shows up. Yes, he shows up in everybody's life differently, but the pattern is always going to be the same. And that is how you know that is the truth. Because no matter how many times I listen to different testimonies online, I'm like, wow, God, like, it's not the same as my story, but wow, God showed up for them the same way that he has shown up and is showing up for me. And so his grace and his love is the most genuine thing that I think we would ever be able to go through. And that is why I want to be able to give thanks to him, because every situation that has been difficult, he has been my strength and he has been my solid foundation. And he's, to be able to understand that he's always with you, that he's in front of you, behind you, all around you, within you, is a blessing. It is one of the greatest gifts that as Christians we could ever experience. And this testimony is also just to show, like, I'm not a perfect person. We live in a world that is imperfect, and that the things we go through in life are very real. But to be able to find God and for him to be our help, and not just rely on ourselves, and to be able to understand that we're not ever alone, is absolutely beautiful. And that is why I say I wouldn't be able to do what I am doing if it wasn't for him. And he has met me in my life so many times, and so many times I decided to turn away because I thought my will was going to be greater, but his will does catch up. And not in a bad way, in the most loving and humbling way. And you will be able to understand the love that he wants to share with you. That is a big wrap up about my testimony. He's always been so consistent, and how he's always been so graceful and so loving and so good. How gracefully he redirects you into the right path is absolutely beautiful. I hope that if you did click on this podcast, it gave you encouragement, that whatever you're going through, just know that you're not alone in it, that you always have God, you always have Jesus on your side. You can always talk to him. He protects you and he watches you in ways that you don't think that he would ever be able to show up. No matter what you lose in life, and no matter how many things you lose in life, you know that he's always with you, and that his promise and his sacrifice is the good news. It just makes me want to get closer and closer to him and get to know him better and better. And that is why I decided to do this podcast and start off with my testimony, because I want to show that I've not always been perfect. I did live very worldly at some point, and that now that I have basically lost everything that I used to identify with, I am left with the truth. And to be able to share the truth is to be able to live the truth too. And so if this podcast found you, then I'm so grateful it did. And I hope that it gives you encouragement and reassurance that you know that you're not alone in this, and that everything works out for the best. We already have so many ideas for this podcast, and I cannot wait to make it flourish and help others hear if God speaks through this podcast to you, or if you don't want to feel alone. God is always with you. He's within you. He's all around you. And I cannot wait to share more on this podcast. We have so many episodes already planned. So it's going to be really, really fun to be able to share and to be able to grow a community. And just like what we are sharing here right now, but to understand that there's a lot of Christians out there who have testimonies and to be able to see God's consistent work and that he shows up for everyone in the exact same way. Even though the story is different, showcases how true he is. You're always going to be on the right track of your life. No matter if you think you made a mistake, that mistake is going to be corrected and redirected by God's grace. And so God bless you, and I will see you in the next podcast episode. So stay locked in with Christ.